All right, get ready because today we're going deep into how beliefs change.
It's something a lot of you have asked about.
Yeah, and we're exploring this paper
Huh.
that uses analogies to explain the whole thing.
It looks at why people cling to certain ideas or change their minds or even resist new information.
And get this, it uses analogies from totally different fields.
Like epidemics,
Magnetism.
even evolution,
It's called Analogies for Modeling Belief Dynamics.
by Henrik Olsen and Murda Galesic.
So instead of dry theory, we get to think about how these seemingly unrelated concepts.
Actually offer parallels to the way beliefs work.
First up, the epidemic analogy. What do diseases have to do with beliefs?
It's just like a virus spreads through a population.
A belief can too.
You're exposed to an idea,
You get infected.
and then you might transmit it to others.
So like those chain emails from your aunt with the health advice?
Yeah, maybe.
That's belief contagion, right?
The researchers actually took those classic epidemiological models,
Like what?
like the SIR model, susceptible, infected, recovered,
Okay.
and they adapted it to map how beliefs spread.
Interesting.
It shows how some beliefs can make you more susceptible to others.
Like how having one illness makes you vulnerable to another.
Exactly.
So like if someone already distrusts authority figures,
They might be more prone to conspiracy theories.
makes sense.
And this model brings up the idea of immunization.
Immunization.
Could we protect people against harmful beliefs?
With a mental vaccine.
Yeah, like preemptively debunking those conspiracy theories.
Wow, mental judo.
It's a fascinating area of research.
But I'm guessing, like any analogy, there are limitations.
Of course.
What doesn't this model capture?
Well, for one, it doesn't explain why certain people spread specific beliefs.
Like it doesn't factor in values or identity?
Yeah, you're more likely to be persuaded by someone you see as similar.
So my aunt's health advice might work in her yoga group.
But you and I are probably immune.
Totally.
It also struggles to explain the backfire effect.
Backfire effect.
When presenting facts actually increases resistance.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
So it's not as simple as exposure equals infection.
Okay, so it's more nuanced than just catching a mental bug.
Right.
What's the next analogy?
This one involves magnets.
Magnets.
It suggests that each belief is like a tiny magnet
okay.
or a spin
A spin.
that tries to align itself with other magnets
So like refrigerator magnets.
to create a state of low energy.
Low energy, how does that relate to beliefs?
Think of that low energy as cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance, okay.
It's uncomfortable to hold conflicting beliefs.
Right. We crave consistency,
So we adjust our views to get that sense of consistency.
like magnets seeking alignment.
We want harmony in our belief system.
I see.
So for example, if you believe in climate change,
Yeah.
you're less likely to buy a gas-guzzling car.
Because that would create inner conflict.
Your beliefs are trying to get those mental magnets to point in the same direction.
Oh, like my belief in sustainability is repelling the gas guzzler?
Exactly. The paper uses the Ising model from physics.
Ising model.
To illustrate this, it provides a framework,
Perfect.
understanding how beliefs change within networks.
So like networks of beliefs in my mind.
Yes, and also the beliefs held by people in your social circle.
So there's this social influence happening all the time.
Researchers can actually measure this.
They can.
They can quantify something called attention to dissonance.
Wow, they can really put a number on it.
And people who are more aware of those inner conflicts are more likely to change their beliefs.
So science is catching up with our intuition.
You could say that.
But the magnet analogy has its limitations, right?
Sure.
What are they?
Well, it assumes that relationships between beliefs are static.
Like magnet stuck in place.
But our beliefs are more fluid than that,
We might prioritize some beliefs over others.
depending on the situation.
Right, context matters.
And it struggles to explain disagreement and polarization.
Yeah, if we're all like magnets, shouldn't we all agree eventually?
It definitely oversimplifies things,
So, it's a good starting point.
but doesn't capture everything.
What's next?
Let's talk about thresholds.
Thresholds.
Think of water freezing.
Okay.
It stays liquid,
Until it hits that critical temperature,
and then boom.
it changes states.
The analogy here is that some believe change happens similarly.
Only when a threshold is crossed.
Exactly.
So what kind of threshold are we talking about?
One model is called bounded confidence.
Bounded confidence.
It suggests we're more likely to update our beliefs if the difference between what we believe and the new information.
Isn't too jarring.
Right, we have a comfort zone for new ideas.
So small adjustments are easier than a complete overhaul,
Right, you might tweak your recycling habits.
but not become a minimalist overnight.
This also helps explain why societies can splinter
Splinter how?
into separate belief clusters.
Because people only engage with ideas within their bounded confidence.
And that's how echo chambers form.
So this isn't just a theory.
Neuroscience research shows our brains have neural thresholds for decision-making.
Wow, so it's biology and psychology.
Our brains resist ideas outside our comfort zone.
Fascinating.
But again, it's not perfect.
What's wrong with it?
Well, those thresholds probably aren't fixed values.
They change.
They probably vary between people.
And situation.
And even the specific belief.
So what's a minor shift for one person could be huge for another.
Right, and context matters too.
So we're more complex than an on-off switch.
Exactly.
And this brings up a point the authors make.
What's that?
All analogies eventually break down.
That's true.
The key is recognizing their limits.
And using them as tools for understanding.
Not absolute truths.
Right.
So we've covered epidemics, magnetism, and thresholds.
What's next?
What else is there?
Forces. Like forces in physics.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Imagine our beliefs existing in a psychological field.
A psychological field.
Influenced by forces of balance and consistency.
Okay, now I'm picturing a cosmic belief system.
It's about understanding social dynamics.
Okay.
Like how we navigate relationships.
Yeah. We strive for harmony in our social circles.
Right.
So our beliefs are subject to similar forces.
Pushing us towards coherence.
Not just within our minds.
But in our relationships, too.
Exactly.
And we adjust our beliefs to maintain equilibrium.
Both internally and externally.
Okay, but how does this play out in the real world?
Let's say you have two friends who disagree strongly on a political issue.
Okay, I've been there.
That tension creates pressure to change.
To change what?
Either their beliefs,
Or the relationship.
maybe one friend persuades the other,
Or the friendship weakens.
because of the conflict.
So the force of their beliefs is reshaping both their minds and the friendship.
Belief dynamics can be incredibly complex.
Yeah, lots of push and pull.
But this analogy has limits too.
What are they?
It can be overly simplistic.
How so?
It assumes balance is the main driver.
But we're motivated by more than just wanting things to be calm.
Sometimes we cling to beliefs that create disharmony.
Right, we can be stubborn or loyal. And this analogy doesn't fully account for that.
So it gives us insight.
This is not the whole story.
What's next?
Evolution.
Evolution. Are we talking survival of the fittest beliefs?
You got it.
Okay, I can see how beliefs vary.
But how does selection work when we talk about beliefs?
Yeah, what makes one belief fit to survive?
That's where social learning comes in.
Social learning
We're constantly watching others.
and making decisions based on their actions and outcomes.
Like we adopt a belief if it leads to success for others.
So it's a social marketplace of beliefs.
You could say that.
So some beliefs are just trendier
And transmission is how they spread.
from person to person.
This highlights how cultural attractors influence what beliefs persist.
Cultural attractors.
Like catchy ideas or persuasive arguments.
So some beliefs just have better marketing.
But this analogy has baggage, too.
Like what?
We can't treat beliefs as fixed things like genes. People reinterpret and modify beliefs constantly.
It's not just copying and pasting.
It's more like remixing.
So beliefs mutate as they spread.
Another limitation is that it can overlook network structure.
Network structure.
How beliefs spread depends on the connections and influence in a society.
It matters who's doing the talking.
The evolutionary analogy often assumes a homogeneous population.
But social networks are more complex than that.
We have different circles,
Family, friends, online communities.
and those impact how beliefs evolve.
So it's not just survival of the fittest belief.
It's about the social ecosystem.
Makes sense.
So it gives us some insights.
But we need to be careful.
What's next?
What else do we have?
Weighted additive models.
Weighted additive models.
It's actually pretty intuitive.
Break it down for me.
Imagine your brain is a statistical machine.
Okay.
It's constantly weighing information.
To update my beliefs.
We're bombarded with information.
And we have to decide what to accept.
This analogy suggests that we assign weights to different sources.
Like I might trust a study about coffee more than my friend's opinion. So we run a mental cost-benefit analysis.
On which beliefs are worth holding.
Our brains are doing mental calculations.
This approach is useful for modeling belief dynamics.
In both social and individual networks.
Remember those networks of beliefs.
Yeah.
This analogy suggests we weigh their importance.
And adjust our worldview based on how they interact.
It's an internal debate.
With beliefs vying for dominance.
The neat thing is, this offers a way to quantify things.
Quantify.
We can assign numbers to those weights.
And use them to predict how beliefs evolve.
Precisely.
But there must be limitations.
Of course.
What are they?
One is that it assumes a level of complexity that might not be realistic.
You mean like I'm not consciously doing all that math?
It's probably more intuitive than that.
My gut feeling often decides,
This highlights the danger of overfitting models.
making them too neat and tidy.
We can create intricate systems.
But they might not reflect reality.
So it's a useful framework.
But we can't take it too literally.
What else?
What else could there be?
It focuses on the individual,
Yeah.
doesn't consider social dynamics.
So social pressures and norms also matter.
Our beliefs are embedded in social networks.
It's like, I wouldn't wear neon green to a funeral.
Even if you loved it,
Exactly.
the model misses those social factors.
So we need models that include both individual and social aspects.
And one final limitation,
Go on.
it assumes we have perfect information.
But we don't.
We often have incomplete or inaccurate data.
Our beliefs can be influenced by misinformation.
So we need to consider uncertainty and bias.
And the reliability of the information itself.
This is crucial.
Okay, so it's a tool with some blind spots.
Right.
What about Bayesian learning?
That one's really interesting.
It rings a bell.
It's a statistical concept. The analogy is that people update their beliefs,
Based on prior knowledge and new evidence.
like how Bayesian statistics works.
So we have pre-existing beliefs.
And new information strengthens or weakens them.
So it's a model for ideal belief updating.
It describes what should happen if we were perfectly rational.
The key word is should.
It's especially useful for understanding rational disagreement. When people have the same evidence,
But different views.
it shows how that can happen.
Even when people are trying to be objective.
There can be more than one rational interpretation.
I've had those conversations.
Where you feel like you have solid evidence,
And the other person won't budge.
it can be frustrating.
But I guess it makes sense.
We're not always perfectly rational.
No, we're not.
We have biases and emotions and take shortcuts,
So it's a useful model.
but a simplified version of reality.
Exactly.
And this brings us back to the author's main point.
Which is,
All analogies break down
we have to recognize their limits,
and use them as complementary perspectives.
not competing explanations.
There are different lenses to view the same object.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Epidemics, magnetism, thresholds, forces, evolution, weighted models, and Bayesian learning.
Quite a journey.
What are the key takeaways?
One big thing is that belief change is rarely easy or quick,
It's not like you can just snap your fingers and it happens.
especially for deep-seated beliefs
It takes time and effort.
and willingness to engage with different viewpoints,
We can't just expect people to abandon their beliefs.
especially if they're connected to identity.
We need to be more patient.
More compassionate.
It's not about winning an argument.
It's about creating a safe space for sharing.
Maybe opening up to change.
It's a journey.
We also need to be aware of the forces shaping our own beliefs.
Cognitive dissonance, social influence, shared values.
Yeah, how do we put it into practice?
Cultivate a healthy skepticism. It's not just about fact-checking
It's about questioning our own reactions,
and considering alternative viewpoints.
even those that challenge us.
That's intellectual humility.
Admitting we don't know everything,
We can learn from anyone.
even if we disagree.
Emotions also play a role.
So it's not just about logic.
We need to be sensitive to feelings
Our beliefs are connected to our values.
and our sense of self,
Sometimes we believe what we need to believe.
not necessarily what's true.
So we need to ask, what need is this belief meeting?
How is it contributing to their identity?
This helps us have more compassionate conversations.
Even when we disagree.
We need to build relationships based on trust
And mutual respect,
so we can have productive conversations
where people feel safe.
without judgment or ridicule.
It's about listening with empathy,
Trying to understand, not persuade,
finding common ground.
which can be tough in a polarized world.
But it's crucial to build bridges.
But how do we make those conversations more constructive?
Start by finding common ground.
Even if you disagree on the issue,
There are usually shared values or goals.
start with what you agree on.
Focus on understanding, not persuasion.
Really see their perspective?
Active listening is key.
Pay attention, ask questions, reflect,
Put your own agenda aside.
engage with their thoughts and feelings,
It can be powerful.
even if it doesn't lead to immediate change.
Feeling heard can shift the dynamic,
It opens up space for empathy.
and that can be the first step.
So it's not about forcing change
It's about creating space for change.
through genuine conversation.
Understanding how beliefs change makes us better communicators.
More compassionate listeners.
More thoughtful community member.
Such great insights.
Thanks.
But one last question.
Okay.
What about truth?
Truth.
With all these influences and biases.
Is there even such a thing as objective truth?
Big question.
Philosophers have debated it for centuries.
No easy answer.
But we should keep striving for truth.
Even though it's complex.
Our understanding will always be incomplete.
So we don't give up.
We acknowledge the complexity.
It's an ongoing journey.
These analogies are valuable.
They help us explore the question of truth.
In a deeper way.
It's not about finding the answer.
It's about asking better questions.
Challenging our assumptions.
Being open to revising our beliefs.
That's critical thinking.
Engaging with complexity.
Accepting uncertainty.
Continually refining our understanding.
Great way to wrap things up.
I agree.
So there you have it, listeners.
A deep dive into belief dynamics.